welcome back to Mariana Mas Books. My name is Mariana and today I am here with a booktuber bio tag. At this point you probably have seen the tag already because everyone has done it. From what I've seen, this was created by Jessica's Library Card, and of course I'm late to the party, but no matter, I want to join the fun. I had this one on my list to film for a while, and yeah, there's not much else to say. This is just a tag with questions about your life. The first question is literally, who are you? And I don't know about you, but I cannot not hear Adam Scott's voice when I see that question. So it's just share a little bit about yourself as much as you are comfortable. So I am Mariana, I am from Mexico, I am 35 years old, I studied graphic design in university, and I worked for a while as a project manager in a design firm here where I live, which is in Puebla in Mexico. And then I switched gears completely and I became like a speaker, blogger, writer type of a thing. I think linguist Gretchen McCulloch calls it a weird internet career. That is what I have. And that is because if I rewind for a bit, when I was in university, when I was 19 years old, I had a issue thing with my health that led to a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and so I had a surgery for that tumor, but it was a super complicated surgery. It lasted a really long time. I almost died and then I had to be months in the hospital and then in a rehabilitation center, and then I came back home, but like I came back and I still had a lot of physiotherapy and like wheelchair, oxygen tank, all the things. And so that lasted for a while, and then I slowly started getting better, but it wasn't like a one-time thing. I still have a lot of things. I have a diagnosis, and so doctors and surgeries and therapy and physiotherapy and all that stuff is a part of my everyday life, and that led me to writing about it in a blog. So I guess I'm going to go on the full story on this. I don't know if I can be brief. Okay, so ever since I was little, I have loved to write. When I was in elementary school, I told everyone I was going to be a writer when I grew up, and I meant that in the sense of fiction writer. So I wrote short stories. I made my own storybooks. I've always been writing. My dad writes. He's a published author in the academia world. All my uncles write. Everyone writes in my family, and so I also wrote since I was little. And when I had my surgery and everything, a friend started a blog for me because I had my surgery in Mexico City, so I was like isolated from my life and my friends and my family. My mom stayed with me, but other than my mom, I was just with her. So the purpose of the blog was keeping me in touch with my friends and my family, because that way they would write emails and send pictures, and that would be published in the blog, and I could read it. And I also published some stuff so I could update everyone on how I was doing. Now at that time I could not actually type, and I could not speak because I had a tube in my throat. So I mouthed the entries to my mom, and my mom read my lips and she wrote the entries. So like that's how I started writing, and I just really enjoyed that writing about life. So I just kept doing it, and I had a lot of blogs over the years. And then I finished university, and then I started working as a project manager. And eventually, because of my blog, I started doing speaking engagements, just like small. Don't picture me with like a Madonna microphone. Like, where did I hear that Madonna microphone? I don't remember, but don't picture me with that. Like, I have only done that once in my life in a TEDx conference that I gave, uh, which was a cool experience. But like, other than that, it's just small in universities or in schools, that type of thing. So I started doing that, and it came a point, like, to sum up, it came a point where I didn't enjoy going to the office anymore, because I would go and give my speaking stuff, and then at the end of the conference people would come up and they would tell me stories about their lives, and it was a very meaningful thing. And then I would go back to the office, and because I was in design, the design industry, I would go back to the office and clients would be like, I don't like that logo red, I need it blue, and I need it today. And I was like, there are bigger things in the world than your stupid logo. So I started getting annoyed, and also because of health reasons, I would get sick all the time, and then I would miss a lot of work, and I would be out of work a lot, and it would be super stressful. So, like, all of that led to me leaving that office job and doing full time the blog speaking type of thing. And now I still have this like online platform. It's super small. Please don't picture like super big platform. It's super small, but I like it, and I have like a small community, a Patreon, and I like it. And that's what I do. I write, I make videos. So that's like my past. And I don't know, I never said how I got into booktube. I like to read and I got into booktube. I don't know, maybe there is a future question, so I don't want to expand on that. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, yes. So question number 2 is, how long have you been on booktube? And actually I did not look it up. I am not super sure. I want to say maybe like 4 years, or is it that much? Yes, because I'm going to put it on screen. I think it's been at least 4 years, maybe more. Then it's, what kinds of books do you like to read, and has booktube changed the way you read or the types of books that you read? And yes, 100%. I think the one constant is that I have always been a fantasy lover. And generally, like, the types of things I like, obviously that's a constant. But my reading has changed a lot, and nowadays it's changed a lot thanks to booktube. I have mentioned in other videos before that I want to do a video about finding myself as a reader, and I haven't done it. But I will someday. So when I was a kid, the first book I remember being like one of those like books that made me was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And then fast forward, I read The Lord of the Rings, and I would say The Lord of the Rings defines me as a person, just in general. I feel like every single interest I have today can be traced back. Obviously not like directly, but if you take every single interest that I have and you go back and you go back and you go back and you go back, I do think you could eventually trace it back to The Lord of the Rings. So that's like big thing. But here in Mexico, when I was growing up, now the landscape is very different, but when I was growing up, genre fiction has never been a big thing. Obviously there is genre fiction, and mainly I guess genre would be historical fiction, but other than historical fiction, I feel like fantasy, sci-fi, romance, it's not really big. It's not, there are some writers obviously, but it's not. I feel like the genre fiction of Latin America is magical realism, right? And I won't get into that because I have a whole snobby rant about that. But all that to say that I struggled finding books that I liked as I grew older because obviously for younger readers there is a ton of fantasy things, fairy tales, etc. But then as you grow older, there starts being less and less. When I was growing up, the fantasy sci-fi section of the bookstore was like all the way in the back, a small section, and not really featured, and only like classic books, Lord of the Rings, Isaac Asimov. Like there wasn't like now that you go and in the front tables you have Brandon Sanderson and Tchaikovsky and all of those. It wasn't like that when I was growing up, so I didn't really find a lot of things that I liked. So I read mostly novels. So that's what I read, but I didn't super love it because I was always looking for fantasy, for romance. And then when I was a teenager, we lived for a year in the US. And in that year, I thrived as a reader because there's a lot of genre there. So that's when I read Twilight, I read the Af Horsen trilogy, I read a lot of books that I really loved. Then I came back, and again, I couldn't find a lot of fantasy and things like that. And it was, pre YouTube, pre BookTube, obviously, pre social media, barely Facebook was starting. It wasn't like now that I see online the books I like and I get them online. So after my surgery and everything, I started reading a ton of self-help. And that's when I discovered that it can be an amazing genre, and it's one of the things I hate, the snobbery that there is towards it. I understand it because there's a lot of garbage, but there's also really great stuff. And I read it because I needed it. I really did. And I don't know, I hate the snobbery because you literally need it sometimes. And anyway, so I read a lot of mostly self-help for a lot of years. And then I discovered BookTube, and now here we are. And now I have found myself as a reader, I feel like. So I read, I like to say that I like anything historical, fantastical, mythological, magical, and bookish. So historical, there's a wide range, right? Like history nonfiction, historical fiction, historical fantasy, historical sci-fi, and then anything fantastical, there's also a big range, right? Because you can read like straight up fantasy, but then also maybe like a historical fiction where there is a bit of mythology involved. I like things that have historical, fantastical, magical, mythological, and romantic. If a book has any of those qualities, or all of them, or some combination of them, I will most likely like it. Oh, and I prefer back fiction, backlist. So I'm just going to move on to the next question, which is, what do you like about making booktube videos? So obviously I think everyone talks about their community and like the conversation. I really love that now I have, I can be in the historathon group and like find people that love history, or I can be in a fantasy group and find people that love fantasy. Discovering or finding people that enjoy the same things that you do and that they like to nerd out about the things that you like to nerd about, because in real life you don't necessarily meet people like that. So that is my favorite. But then in like for the like making videos aspect, I really love talking. If you can tell from my personal history that I mentioned, that I do videos, that I do speaking engagements, classes, I like talking. I Ever since I was little in school, I would be the girl who would do the presentation in class, and I'm good improvising, and I like talking. I think and I like talking about the things that I like, and I like nerding out about the things I like. So, that's super fun. Next question is, what do you not enjoy about making videos? And that's actually funny because I don't like the filming process, but I love the editing and uploading. I think, the opposite of most people. Most people say they don't like editing. I genuinely love editing. I have so much fun editing videos, which is why I upload them right away, because after I film the video, I'm just dying to edit it because it's so fun. But the filming, however, I have to get myself to do it because it's like, I don't know, just setting everything up, and like, it's just a hassle to film. There is a quote that I've seen attributed to different writers. I'm going to see if I find it. I'll link it, or I'll put in the screen. But the quote says, "I hate writing, but I love having written." And I 100% identify with that in terms of writing and in terms of filming. I hate filming, but I love having filmed. So that would be it. The next question is, what video in your channel are you the most proud of? And I feel like I'm the most proud of my historathon videos, and I do think that the video that I'm most proud of is the video that I made with recommendations for conquest books about Spanish conquest. Because I'm someone that is not very consistent. Consistency is not my friend. I am, if anyone likes astrology stuff, I'm a Sagittarius, and I'm a very Sagittarius person. So, like, I start and abandon things. That's my thing. I'm actually super proud that I've stuck with BookTube, and I think that's genuinely because I love it. Um, because often I will start books and start hobbies and abandon them. I will also start books and abandon them. That's also true about hobbies. I feel like the one constant hobby in my life has been reading. I have been reading since I was a kid, and I've never abandoned that, and I never will, because being a reader is a big part of my identity. And I mean that. But if you've seen my booktube channel, I do a lot of things. I try something and then do another, or I do a TBR and then I never read the books on my TBR, or I do a TBR and I never do a wrap up, or I say in a video, oh, I'm going to film a video about this, and then I never do. That's like my way of the way I am, unless it's work or school, because I'm like a super responsible person when it comes to work or school. But all that to say, what was that? I don't even remember what the question was. Oh yeah, the reason why I'm proud about that video is because I managed to actually make this project for myself of reading several books about the same topic and then do a video reviewing them. I love people who can do that, who can have reading projects, who read the books and they say, I'm going to read every single book on this price list and then do a video. That type of thing. I love it. They're my favorite types of videos, and I can't do that. Which is why I'm super proud of that video, because I actually stuck with it and made the video. Next question is there anything you wish was different about BookTube? And I've seen a lot of answers, different types of answers. Instead of talking about the booktubers, I'm going to talk about YouTube as a platform and something that has started to happen in booktube that I despise with every fiber of my being. Two things. One, the auto dub. When you put the auto dub function in your channel, I don't know if it's something you choose or if it's automatic. I hate that. When I start watching a video of a booktuber I like and this dub voice in Spanish starts speaking and it sounds so robotic, it's awful. And then the other thing is, and I just saw that recently and I cannot, I hate it, I hate it. There is now like an AI function with the comments. And I noticed that in one of my videos, I received a comment I was going to answer, and YouTube offered me answers, like pre-made AI answers, that because of the functions of these, like, new AI technologies that sound like humans, they weren't generic, like, like when you write an email and you have automatic answers like, okay, see you then, or things like that. These are very particular to the comment. So like someone had commented to me about my bookmarks and they said, oh, I love bookmarks but I always use the same one. And there were a lot of answers like, oh yeah, that happens to me too, but that's why I like to rotate them, or whatever. There were several answers that were actually conversational about the question, and I thought it was the most awful thing I've seen in my life. Just to be clear, I hate the companies who do that, so don't take the hate personally if you use those types of things. My hate is towards companies rather than users, okay? So, but I hate it. I wish it didn't exist, and it goes against the first thing that we were saying. We all love, our favorite thing about booktube is a community, is a making friends, is a meeting people, and now that's being relegated to AI, where instead of actually talking to people, there are generic AI generated answers. I think it's awful, and I think it's a contradiction to the thing we love about making community. Okay, next question I think I was postponing this video because of this question, and it is, name 3 books that you have reviewed in your channel that you feel represent who you are as a reader. And I've been thinking about this and overthinking so much, like what 3 books do I want to talk about, and that's why I was postponing this video. So just to answer the first part of the question, I think I have 1 or 2 book reviews in my channel. I wish I did book reviews. That's something I would like to do, but I don't do them often, so I can't talk about books that I have reviewed. But so what I'm going to do, right? Because I was feeling too much pressure to think of 3 books that represent me as a reader. I always felt like there was something missing, like no, I should do this one or this one. So what I'm going to do is 3 books that represent 3 things or 3 areas that booktube has made me discover. So they won't be necessarily my favorite books in those areas. They will be the first book or one of the more representative books from that area that led me to discover that whole reading love, if that makes sense. So the first one I'm going to talk about is The Witches by Stacy Schiff. Why am I talking about that book? Because that is the first historical non-fiction book I read. I read that for Non-Fiction November, and I read that because I had been watching a lot of Bean's videos at Revenant Reads. He talks a lot about history books, and I thought that was super cool. And also Jenny at Jennifer Brooks, she also talked about history. She was a historian, and I thought they were both very cool, and I wanted to, read like them. And I saw that one, and because if you remember the things I told you I like, anything that has historical qualities, magical qualities, fantastical qualities. So this is a history book about the Salem witch trials. So it's like, in terms of vibes, it's historical and it's witchy. That, yeah, so right up my alley, right? So I read that one. I loved it. I wouldn't consider it one of my favorite history books, but it was the first I read that led me to discover that I love reading history. The next one I'm going to mention is The Song of My Seed, which represents my love of medieval literature, which I also discovered on BookTube, and that I did discover specifically thanks to Jenny at Jennifer Brooks. She didn't read a lot of medieval books, but she started the Ancients-a-thon, readathon, where you were supposed to read things before the 1700s, I think. Most people did read like Roman, Greek stuff, but I started reading medieval literature thanks to that, and it changed my life, and now I adore it. And I think, no, The Song of My Seed was definitely not the first one that I read, but it was a very purposeful one because I had been reading medieval literature from English speaking or Nordic speaking area, and I wanted to read something closer to my context, historical context. And there's a lot of Spanish culture here, and so I thought that would be the biggest one. The Song of My Seed, you read that in school here. I won't talk about it because I talked about it when I reviewed the book. But that would be one. So it's like my love of medieval literature, and specifically my interest in reading about historical or classical stuff that is closer to my cultural context. And then the final one that I'm going to mention is, I think, Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, and that is to represent my coming back to fantasy, because as I said, I had always considered myself a fantasy reader, but I feel like I haven't read like a fantasy book since my teenage years, literally. Which is why, even though I'm a fantasy lover, I haven't read a lot of very popular fantasy books, and that was my return to fantasy. My return to fantasy would actually be my reread of The Lord of the Rings, which I body read with Elle from Elle Things, but I had already read that. So a new book that opened me up to the world of fantasy once again was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which I'm not going to talk about because I've talked about the Realm of the Elderlings a lot in my channel. And then name 3 booktubers whose content inspires you. And obviously there are so many, right? So many booktubers that inspire you. But I think I'm going to mention like the specific thing that inspires me about their channels. Because otherwise I could talk about them for ages, right? So first, I'm going to mention Mara at Books Like Wow, and the biggest thing that inspires me about her is that she does a lot of reading projects, and she's very organized with them. And so she will give herself reading projects and then do videos and vlogs and stuff about them, and she will finish her reading projects. She was the first person I ever saw with reading projects, so she would be one. I also am going to mention Olive at A Book Olive, and the reason why I'm going to talk about her is because she is a fantastic reviewer. She's so eloquent. I do think she has some of the best reviews on BookTube, and I always wish I could review books like her or talk about books like her. She's concise and to the point, but also she goes deep into the books that she reviews. And she's super eloquent, the way she speaks, the way she talks about books. So yeah. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Sarah at Eyes on Indie. And I'm going to mention two things about her channel. One is the super clear focus of her channel. I love that she only talks about indie books in her channel. And I think it's so original because usually the focus is with genres. So you would be like a fantasy channel or a literary fiction channel or a history channel. And instead of that, she does indie. So it can be fiction or non-fiction or different genres, but by indie publishers. So the focus is one, and then the other is the creative video ideas. She has the most creative video ideas on BookTube, full stop. By the way, she's also a super eloquent, fantastic book reviewer, and Mara as well, actually. So I guess that would be something that I admire about the three of them. And then the final question is: It can be challenging to find your audience. So talk about some booktubers that you think deserve more hype. So I think it's very personal, but in this case, it's not meant to be big channels, but channels that you think deserve more hype. And I'm going to repeat: Sarah at Eyes on Indie. For the life of me, I can't understand why she doesn't have more followers. So Sarah at Eyes on Indie. I'm going to mention also Heather at Too Many Heathers. I adore her channel. She is just amazing. She's one of the co-hosts of Shorty September. She's super creative. She's super funny. She reads super cool books. She's a super cool person. Heather, Too Many Heathers. And I'm going to mention Vin at Revenant Reads, who is the creator of Historathon. I love his channel. I've been watching him for a long time. As I said, he was, along with Jenny, them two, they were the ones who got me into reading history. So super inspiring, and I really love his Fresh Red Kills series. I really love people who can come up with creative wrap-up names. Um, so yeah, I'm going to mention those three. There are more, obviously, but I want to keep with the three format like with the previous questions, so I don't feel like I'm like leaving anyone out. I'm just three for one, three for the other, and that's what we're going to do. And I think that last question also doubled as tag. So like the three channels you mentioned, you are also tagging them if they want to do the tag. As always. And yeah, I'm going to leave it like that because I honestly, everyone has done this tag, so I won't even know who to tag that hasn't done it yet. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon with another bookish video, and in the meantime, I wish you happy reading.